The shocking secret behind Corpus Christi revealed, what they never told you about its origin. Few knew what truly happened that night. The streets of Jerusalem glimmered under the moonlight, casting shadows darker than the secrets buried beneath the surface. An eerie whisper carried through the crowd, a hushed reverence enveloping them as they gathered. They spoke not just of a feast, but of a miracle, a moment where time stood still. Could it be that God himself walked among them? The air was thick with anticipation, every soul present grasping at the reality of something extraordinary. It was the Last Supper, the name whispered by many but understood by few. The table was set, the aroma of bread wafted gently like a beckoning call straight to the heart. On this night, the world would shift. The flicker of candles revealed faces etched with confusion and awe. What truth lay behind the simple act of breaking bread? Eyes darted nervously. A man, fully human yet vestiges of divinity radiated from him, would declare that this was his body, a statement that pierced the night like a sword. Each disciple wrestled with their own contradictions. How could this be? They had followed him, heard his teachings, now, they faced a reckoning. The tension surged. It was palpable, a weight no one could ignore. And just beyond the walls, the city hummed restless, whispers of betrayal slithered like shadows. In the distance, the temple's bells chimed, marking the Hura countdown to an unimaginable betrayal, an impending sacrifice that would rip through the very fabric of faith. Was this truly God's will or an echo of despair? As the man poured wine, he spoke words that would echo through eternity, words that slipped through hearts and ignited doubts. This is my blood. Those strong verbs throbbed a pulse of fear, anticipation, shock. A cold shiver danced down the spine of each observer, their hearts racing against the drum of uncertainty. What if this sacrament was not merely a promise, but a prelude to pain? Would the gifts of love and hope be buried with him in the earth's embrace? In a defining moment, eye contact became a search for understanding. Some hands trembled as they reached for the bread, while others clenched in doubt. What awaited them beyond this night? The question lingered, heavy in the air, leaving some breathless. How would they face a world forever altered by this revelation? The specter of betrayal grew larger, and the night, ominous as it was beautiful, watched silently as faith cracked and hope struggled to break free. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room pulsated with an energy that confused and consumed. The disciples gathered around the table, caught in a maelstrom of faith and uncertainty, their hearts wrestling with the implications of their master's words. They absorbed the significance of the bread and wine, yet uncertainty hung heavily in the air, prompting them to look at one another with questions unasked. As Jesus' hands gently tore the bread, he gazed at each one, his eyes filled with love and a haunting promise. The cracked surface of the loaf seemed to crack open something deeper within them, moving each to confront their own hopes and fears. Take, eat, this is my body, he said, his voice a soothing balm yet laden with impending sorrow. The act felt intimate, as if beyond the breaking was a revelation veiled in mystery. In that still moment, as fragments of bread were shared, a shadow slipped among them, sown quietly by a heart caught in the snare of greed and betrayal. Judas Iscariot, his face low, wrestled with the weight of silver exchanged for loyalty. What lay beneath his facade? Was it desperation, ambition, or a profound misunderstanding of the kingdom he believed to be unfolding? His inner turmoil blossomed into a silence that spoke louder than words, casting doubt even upon the intentions of the Lord. Is it I, Lord? As the whispered question fell from lips trembling with fear, it illuminated the raw emotions shared among them. The other disciples echoed heartbreak and disbelief, a collective embrace of vulnerability that could barely endure the gravity of the moment. Each one quietly considered their relationship with Jesus, reflecting upon the essence of their very identities as followers. With gentle wisdom, Jesus replied, "The one who has dipped his hand with me in the bowl will betray me." A heavy weight settled among them, the atmosphere suffused with a foreboding that heralded more than a mere act of treachery. The revelation was not only about Judas but challenged each disciple to confront the shadows within their own hearts. Would they also falter when faced with the unimaginable call to stand by him? Peter, emboldened by a fervent spirit, protested, "Though all may forsake you, I will not." But this declaration, though steeped in courage and loyalty, veiled a flicker of impending denial. Jesus, meeting his steadfast gaze, with an ominous calmness, declared, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." The group fell into contemplation, each soul grappling with the duality of loyalty and disbelief. And as the candles flickered, casting shadows that danced against the walls, a deeper truth emerged. Betrayal lay not only in Judas' intent but lurked in the recesses of each heart that felt the pull of fear of loss, abandonment, and the vulnerability that faith necessitated. As the meal continued, an extraordinary silence enveloped the room, each disciple lost in reflective turmoil. The air thickened with anticipation, echoing the profound reality that they were suspended on the precipice of something transformative. Beyond the walls of this gathering, the city remained unaware of the profound metamorphosis taking place within them, each one meant to bear witness to a truth more potent than any betrayal. And as Jesus lifted the chalice, declaring, "This is my blood of the new covenant," a question lingered quietly among the gathered hearts. What new covenant would emerge from the depths of this gathering of doubt, faith, and impending sacrifice? Would the mystery of their journey lead them to redemption or deepen their despair? The night awaited their answer, shrouded in both promise and uncertainty. As the last notes of the evening repast dwindled into silence, the weight of unspoken fears hung palpably around the table. Each disciple wore a mask of contemplation, their thoughts swirling like a tempest within calm waters. Only the soft glow of the flickering candles illuminated their faces, each light reflecting the conflict that simmered beneath their skin. Jesus, sensing the heaviness in the atmosphere, arose with a serenity that invoked both reverence and anxiety. His presence quieted their hearts, drawing forth a thread of unity amid their turbulent emotions. He beckoned them to follow him outside, beyond the confines of the dimly lit room, to a garden where the night would offer both solace and revelation. As they walked, shadows danced with them, the foliage whispering ancient secrets of the earth. Jesus led them to a secluded spot, a place he often sought for prayer, where the air was thick with the fragrance of olives and the weight of the stars above. Kneeling down, he urged them to join him in prayer, bidding them to offer their hearts to the Father, to seek strength and clarity amidst the approaching storm. The disciples hesitated, reluctant to tread too close to the depths of their anxieties. Each had a burden they kept hidden, reservations that flared like hot coals in the silence. Peter, still haunted by his earlier proclamation, found it difficult to confront the fear swirling within him. His heart raced, knowing the challenge that lay ahead, the inherent fragility of the bonds they had forged. As they bowed in prayer, Jesus withdrew a short distance, falling to his knees with fervor. The shadows obscured his figure, but the intensity of his spirit pierced through the darkness. "Father," he cried, a plea escaping his lips, "if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." The air trembled with the burden of his words, and a profound silence enveloped the disciples. They dared to glance at one another, feeling the weight of his decision articulated in that singular moment of urgency. What did it mean for one sent to save the world to grapple with such despair? Was his humanity faltering, or was it a revelation of divine depth they could barely understand? In the stillness that followed, the sound of rustling leaves seemed to echo his anguish. It grew harder for the disciples to breathe, their initial resolve waning as they witnessed their master's visible struggle. Faced with an immense call to sacrifice, could they find their faith amidst his turmoil? The tears Jesus shed were not for himself alone, he mourned for each of them and the trials yet to unfold. As he rose and returned to his companions, he discovered them lost in the grip of sleep, each weary from the weight of their doubts and fears. How could they not stand with him in his hour of anguish? He shook them gently, awakening their spirits not just from slumber but from the deep-rooted lethargy of faith untethered. "You could not watch and pray for 1 hour," he asked, his voice maintaining a mix of gentle rebuke and profound compassion. "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." The echoed words stirred something within them, a realization that their battle was not merely against flesh and blood but against a deeper, unseen struggle. As they roused themselves, resolve began to flicker like the rekindling flames of a fire. Yet, uncertainty remained. The night was fragile, full of shadows that hinted at betrayal, awakening a desperate sense of urgency. What would they choose when faith demanded action? Would they stand firm, or would the chains of fear bind them in the moment of truth? And so, with the cool night air brushed against their skin, they each wondered, what awaited them in the hours to come? Would they rise to defend their master, or succumb to the darkness that threatened to envelop their hearts? In that garden of olive trees, one mystery remained tantalizingly unresolved. The test of their faith lay ahead, veiled in shadows, waiting to break at the break of dawn. As dawn began to creep softly over the horizon, weaving threads of light through the darkness, the garden transformed. The shadows of the night began to dissolve, yet the weight of anticipation remained tangible in the cool morning air. The disciples, though still shaken by the emotional tumult of the previous hour, gathered around Jesus once more, their expressions reflecting a curious blend of courage and trepidation. Jesus gazed at them, the glow of the rising sun painting his silhouette with a gentle brightness. "The hour has come," he declared, each word weighted with significance. He motioned towards the path that led away from their sacred refuge, inspiring both excitement and fear within his followers. They were aware that what lay beyond that garden was beyond their control, a crossing into an unknown that they could not navigate without their master. "Let us go. See, my betrayer is at hand," he said calmly. The words struck like a harsh bell tolling in their hearts. As they began to make their way out, a sense of foreboding enveloped them. Each took the first steps on that narrow path, marching not just towards a fray but towards a pivotal moment in their shared journey, a point of no return. The sounds of the city waking echoed around them, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere that enveloped them. Yet, among the clamor of roosters crowing and merchants preparing their wares, an unsettling apprehension grew stronger within the group. Who was this betrayer? What choices would the others make? As if in unison, their thoughts turned to Judas, the shadow among them whose footsteps had hastened their fears. "Lord," Peter ventured, breaking the silence that had formed a thick veil, "is it true that one of us will betray you?" His voice trembled, uncertainty etched on his face. The question hung heavily in the air, a thread connecting them to a reality they found hard to accept. Jesus turned to them, and the sincerity of his gaze pierced through their anxieties. "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me." The disciples exchanged worried glances. It was a revelation that shared a burden and a sense of betrayal that felt unbearable. In their hearts, seeds of doubt began to sprout, igniting a chilling sense of foreboding. The heaviness of the news pressed upon them, making each breath feel laborious. Their thoughts circled like birds of prey, hovering around an impending disaster they were helpless to prevent. How could one of their own, we who shared bread and salt, turn against the man who had filled their hearts with love and hope? Jesus remained steadfast, sensing their turmoil, and offered a gentle reminder cloaked in kindness. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me." His assurance did little to quell the tempest within their souls, yet amidst confusion, flickers of understanding began to dawn. This bewildering path was part of a divine fabric woven by a purpose far greater than their own comprehension. As they continued down the path, the tension grew tighter. The first sounds of approaching soldiers broke the silence like a thunderclap, and the disciples instinctively retreated closer to Jesus. They exchanged looks, each shrouded in questions unvoiced. Were they truly ready to follow him into the depths of what was to come? Would their faith be enough to sustain them through the betrayals, the trials, and the unimaginable sorrow that awaited? With their minds racing, they were caught in a web of uncertainty as they felt a rush of wind carrying that sense of urgency forward. What must they confront within themselves to stand true beside their Lord? Was the love they felt for him stronger than the fears that now gripped their hearts? As they stepped into the new day, the fear of betrayal was palpable, but so too was an awakening. Despite the storm that loomed ahead, the question remained, Would they rise as one when the time for action arrived, or would they falter and scatter? And what secret truths lay hidden behind their individual hesitations, waiting to be unveiled in the unfolding narrative of faith and betrayal? The air was thick, reverberating with the tension of what was to come. As the group moved towards the city, Jesus in their midst, a surreal quietude descended, as if nature itself held its breath. The streets were alive, bustling with merchants and travelers oblivious to the critical moment unfolding nearby. Yet the disciples, blinded by their fears and uncertainties, felt estranged from the vibrancy around them. As they approached the gates of the city, Jesus paused. Turning to face them, his expression was a blend of somber authority and unyielding love. "You will abandon me this night," he said, a quiet solemnity in his voice. The words struck like a cold wind, chilling them to the marrow. Voices once filled with hopes now hesitated under the weight of his prediction. "Though they all fall away on account of you, I never will," Peter exclaimed, fervency spilling from his heart. The other disciples echoed him, pledging their undying loyalty. But Jesus, with eyes that seemed to see into their very souls, replied, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. The grief in his gaze lingered long after the words were spoken, and doubt seeped into their retorts. They moved onward, the air heavy with unspoken thoughts. As they walked, they entered a garden, a place of beauty yet foreboding, where the trees stood like witnesses to the unfolding divine plan. It was here that Jesus led them to a secluded area, a small haven amidst the impending storm. "Sit here while I go over there and pray," he instructed. As they settled on the cool earth, the contrast of serene surroundings and inner turmoil began to weigh heavily on them. They could see Jesus kneeling a short distance away, praying, his figure captured by soft moonlight that bathed him in an ethereal glow. A spectacle of divine gravity surrounded him, yet their unease pulled them away from the mystery unfolding so close. "Lord, what am I to do?" one disciple whispered, voice thick with anxiety. The answer seemed lost in the rustling leaves. It was a question as ancient as the earth itself. What does one do when faced with unimaginable trials? The thought threaded through them, a question without easy answers. As they listened, the deep sorrow echoing in Jesus' voice carried over to them. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Yet, the disciples, fatigue washing over them, struggled against the very weariness that immobilized their resolve. Eyes grew heavy, and the tedious grip of sleep crept upon them despite the alarming circumstances. Unbeknownst to them, Jesus rose, pain etched across his brow. He approached them after a time of intense solitude, finding them asleep, and a sense of profound disappointment shadowed his heart. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked, his voice a whisper tinged with melancholy. The question hung palpably, an echo of their failure to remain vigilant. They stammered apologies, but he urged them to stay awake and pray, knowing the trials they would face were greater than their current distractions. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation," he implored, underscoring the unity of vigilance and prayer. Jesus resumed his solitude, prayer cascading from his lips like the first drops of rain before a storm. As he wrestled with the growing awareness of the cross before him, the darkness deepened. A profound anguish surged in him, revealing the inner struggle to submit to the forthcoming injustice and pain, a terrifying surrender to what lay ahead. The disciples stirred, their spirits battling against the pull of heaviness. Each felt the urgency of his words but was unable to grasp their full meaning amidst their confusion. "What must we do?" they questioned silently, uncertain of how to carry the weight of their loyalty amidst such dread. As the night deepened, the silence of the garden was shattered by a distant clamor, footsteps, shouting, a sense of dread that quickened their pulse. The atmosphere thickened, and with each passing moment, the revelation of what awaited drew closer, like vultures gathering above. Would they truly stand together when darkness descended, or had the seeds of doubt sown among them sprouted into betrayal? What would this night reveal about their souls, and what hidden truths lingered, awaiting exposure in the light of dawn? The unfolding story hung upon the precipice of anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the uncertainty of their fate. As the sounds of commotion grew louder, a palpable tension gripped the disciples. The once serene garden, where the air whispered promises of hope and faith, now seemed to echo a warning of betrayal. What had begun as a simple night of prayer was morphing into a horror that none had anticipated. Jesus emerged from his solitude, his figure clad in the night's shadow as he approached the disciples. "The hour has come," he said, his voice steady yet filled with a weight that made their hearts heavy. "The Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners." The disciples, still partially veiled in sleep, stirred as confusion washed over them like a sudden wave. "What does he mean?" John murmured to Peter, fear flickering in his eyes. They could see the strain on Jesus' face, deep lines etched from the enormity of his burden. The weight of destiny pressed against them, causing their chests to tighten in trepidation. Suddenly, torches appeared at the vineyard's edge, a flickering dance of light and shadow that heralded the approach of men armed with weapons. The glow emanated from the sinister coalition of priests, scribes, and soldiers, their faces twisted with resolute intent. Judas emerged from their midst, his silhouette dark against the firelight, a traitor emerging from the depths of betrayal. "Rabbi!" Judas shouted, the mocking note in his voice cutting through the stillness like a knife. "Hail, Master!" With that kiss, the signal was given, and chaos erupted. The disciples instinctively drew closer to Jesus, their hearts thundering in disbelief. "Lord, shall we strike with our swords?" Peter cried out, filled with a reckless mixture of fear and bravery. Before an answer could come, he lunged forward, the sword gleaming in the dim light as it clashed against the helmet of one of the captors, the ringing sound echoing far into the night. "Put your sword away," Jesus commanded, his voice an anchor amidst the storm. "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword." He approached the wounded man, gently touching his ear, and as he healed him, gasps rippled through the crowd. Was this not the same Jesus who declared peace and mercy? How could he allow such horror to unfold? In that moment, as chaos reigned, the true turmoil within the hearts of the disciples began to surface. Peter's fervent loyalty turned to doubt, and fear twisted like a vine through each of their hearts. What of the vows they had made moments before? Were they now to share in the shame of betrayal? As the guard seized Jesus and bound him, they looked upon him with a mixture of awe and despair. Tears threatened to spill from their weary eyes, their world of hope crumbling behind them. They could feel the night itself constrict around them, smothering their beliefs and every dream they had shared under the stars with the man who had called them friends. "Will I abandon him?" A voice whispered in the depths of their minds, choking them with uncertainty. And as they scattered, fleeing into the dark, the question ricocheted, unanswerable and heavy: was it possible to remain faithful when fear and betrayal loomed large? As Jesus was led away, the soft glow of torches slowly faded into the distance, mingling with the shadows of the night. What had begun as a shared journey filled with purpose now hung in the balance, woven into the fabric of a destiny they could not yet comprehend. In the heart of darkness, amid the chaos, they were left searching for clarity. Was this betrayal the culmination of their wavering faith, or a stepping stone to a greater understanding of divine love and sacrifice? As they retreated into the night, their souls whispered a question that would haunt them. In this moment of despair, what would they discover about their own hearts? As the echoes of their hurried footsteps faded into the stillness of the night, a heavy blanket of confusion and fear settled over the deserted garden. The moon, obscured by gathering clouds, cast eerie shadows that danced on the ground where they had so eagerly gathered hours before. Each disciple now found himself alone, each grappling with a different trial of the heart. Peter, torn by the violence of his earlier act, wandered to a nearby olive tree, its gnarled roots a stark reminder of the weighty decisions that plagued him. "What have I done?" he murmured, pressing his palms against the rough bark. "Was I wrong to strike? What good is a sword in the night? Jesus spoke of love, yet I acted out of fear." As he contemplated, memories of warm evenings spent by the fire, listening to Jesus' parables, haunted him. Had he truly understood his master's message? In the distance, the cries of the crowd reached him as the soldiers marched on, leading Jesus away. The very thought of losing him brought a deep anguish clawing at Peter's heart. He remembered how they had called him the Messiah, how they had cast their hopes upon him. The promise of brighter days felt now like a shadow slipping through his grasp. Is our hope extinguished? He whispered, uncertainty hanging in the air like the fragrant scent of the olive blossoms. Meanwhile, John, hidden behind a stone wall, wrestled with his own sorrow. His mind whirled with questions. What is truth if it can be betrayed so easily? Can the love I have for him shield me from this darkness? As he peered through the cracks in the stone, he caught a glimpse of Jesus being led away with his head held high, an embodiment of sorrow yet strength. It was as if in that moment, Jesus became the answer to a question John hadn't yet formulated. Was this path of suffering the very essence of the hope they had sought? In the shadows, Jude grappled with regret. Perhaps I should have spoken up, but what could I offer against the weight of so many? He remembered the teachings laid at their feet, love your neighbor, resist not evil, but how could he reconcile those lessons with what lay before him? Stricken, he thought, was it fate that chose me for this moment or simply cowardice? Meanwhile, Thomas, hidden beneath a fig tree, felt the swirling doubts crash through his defenses. If I had only believed more, would it have turned out differently? His heart echoed with shame as he recalled moments when fear had kept him from stepping forward. Beneath the leaves, he wanted to pray, yet the words felt lodged in his throat. As the disciples huddled in their separate corners, the realization that their promised Savior was now captive ignited a more profound questioning. Was this the fulfillment of prophecies, or merely the tragic end of a misguided dream? The wondering gnawed at their spirits, tethering them to their memories of hope and anticipation. Slowly, around a small flickering flame in a darkened corner, Philip found the courage to voice the uncertainty swirling amongst them. Could it be that we were blind to something divine among us? What if this loss was not an ending at all but an unveiling of a greater truth? Could betrayal, too, be part of a divine plan? The question lingered in the quiet air, an invitation to explore a depth of faith that transcended their immediate fears. As whispers echoed in the night, mingling with the rustling leaves, it dawned upon them, what if the darkness they faced was not merely a fading of hope, but the beginning of a revelation about the power of love and sacrifice? And so, with hearts burdened yet curious, they pondered the mystery of faith in their flight. Was there a greater understanding waiting for them beyond this moment? Would their journey through despair lead them to a realization that transformed their hearts forever? In the somber stillness that enveloped the night, the stars seemed to pulse with an otherworldly light, almost beckoning the disciples to look beyond their physical turmoil. The air thick with uncertainty, they could feel the weight of the world pressing upon them, yet a deeper, unnameable thread of collective yearning seemed to weave its way among them. As the echoes of Philip's words began to dissipate, the group remained ensconced in its thoughts. Andrew, sitting cross-legged on the damp earth, lifted his gaze to the heavens. What if pain is the prelude to awakening? He whispered, his voice barely audible against the backdrop of groaning trees. What if this very moment is a veiled opportunity for something eternal? His mind drifted to the words of the prophets, and he recalled how despair often paved the way for renewal. Matthew, clenching his hands tightly in his lap, wrestled with his own feelings of helplessness. How can we speak of awakening when we are imprisoned by our doubts? He lamented. Each moment feels like a fracturing of all that we know. Are we not the ones who should carry the message forward? He cast his eyes around the group, searching for the familiar confidence he had seen in Jesus, now absent from their midst. Yet as darkness surrounded them, something luminescent flickered within their hearts, an understanding that they were not abandoned. Peter, still leaning against the olive tree, closed his eyes and drew a deep breath, summoning the strength that had once compelled him to walk upon the waves beside his master. Perhaps we are being called to a deeper discipleship, he reflected. One that flourishes not in certainty, but through surrender. In that moment of shared silence, a whisper of clarity began to stir. John, still hidden behind the stone, felt a burning sensation within, a flicker of hope igniting against the enveloping night. Could it be that we are being asked to recalibrate our vision? To see not just through our eyes, but through the lens of faith? His mind wandered back to the times Jesus had spoken of a kingdom not defined by worldly power, but by radical love and humility. Jude, still riddled with guilt, broke in with a tremor in his voice. What if our failures are not the end, but rather the means by which the divine reveals truth? What if hope emerges from the ashes of disappointment, reshaping our understanding of love. The vulnerability in his words gave rise to a momentary sense of camaraderie, allowing the others to bravely explore their own fears and doubts. As they shared their thoughts, a newfound clarity emerged. What if this trial was an invitation to delve deeper into their relationships with each other, and with the divine? They pondered whether the profound love they had shared with Jesus was meant to be a living current, thundering through their veins, rather than a mere recollection of cherished moments. Yet, amid their growing understanding, lingering questions hung in the air like the mist curling around them. What would it mean to truly embrace love as Jesus had taught them, especially in the face of betrayal and suffering? Would they find that their paths, darkened by confusion, would lead them toward a revelation more profound than they ever anticipated? With hearts both heavy and illuminated, they spoke in hushed tones, wondering if they were on the brink of something monumental. What secret might unfold from within their trials? Could their current sorrow be the threshold to a deeper encounter with the divinity they sought after so fervently? Amid the shadows and the flickering warmth of the flame, an unsettling yet invigorating question lingered: was the essence of Jesus' message waiting to be unveiled in their anguished hearts, even through a veil of anguish and doubt? As the night deepened, a stillness held sway over the group, a calm that felt as if the world outside had drawn a collective breath, anticipating what was to come. The stars twinkled above in silent witness, as if time itself had paused to hear their murmurs. With every heartbeat, the weight of their shared turmoil settled deeper, prompting reflections that wound around their minds like a vine about a tree. Each of us carries a piece of his light, Andrew mused, his voice a mere thread against the backdrop of the rustling leaves. What if the pain we feel is merely the shadow cast by the brilliance waiting to break forth? His eyes blinked wide, trying to grasp the enormity of that thought. He could almost feel the spark of revelation lingering on the edge of his consciousness, but it taunted him, slipping through the fingers of understanding. Matthew, still racked with doubt, narrowed his brow as if trying to catch hold of the meaning in Andrew's words. Is it possible to find clarity in our disarray? To truly illuminate the path forward by embracing our shadows? His heart raced as he pondered the inherent complexity of faith, how light and dark intertwined, creating a whole tapestry that bore the footprints of their journey. Just then, the vibrations of the earth shifted, as if it recognized their turmoil and aimed to soothe it. A gust of wind blew through, sending a shiver down their spines. Peter, seized by an impulse, rose to his feet. Let us not dismiss this discomfort. It is a call to deepening, not despair, he said, standing firm against the swirling air. What if we are being called to reflect not just on the losses, but on the moments that brought us unity? Each miracle, each feeding of the multitude, was born from an understanding beyond ourselves. John, emboldened, seized upon Peter's words. Perhaps each trial we face is an echo of a greater truth that we have yet to fully grasp. Much like the seeds planted in the earth, buried, forgotten, yet alive, awaiting the right time to break through the soil and reveal their purpose. His eyes lit with fervor, imagining the divine plan that coursed through their shared existence. The sorrow we feel could birth a resilience we never knew was possible, Jude interjected, voice trembling with the weight of his past mistakes. Are our failures the darkness that signifies a new dawn? When the morning light first breaks, do we not relish its warmth all the more because of the cold night we endured? As each wondered aloud, new thoughts flickered into existence amid the darkness of doubt. Together, they were crafting a rich tapestry woven with the threads of their respective journeys, illuminating the shared path forward, a path they had begun to understand as one of collective renewal and reconnection. And yet, beneath the stirring excitement among them, uncertainty loomed like a shadow. What if, in their desperation to cling to hope, they were blind to the reality of their situation? Might they still miss the very essence of Jesus' teaching while trying to understand what was being asked of them? With the night deepening, that question hovered in the air, eluding definitive answers. It kindled a flame of curiosity within them. What other truths lay buried beneath their fears and regrets? Would this period of anguish open the floodgates to an insight that transcended their understanding? Would they dare to open their hearts wide enough for the whispered secrets of the divine to unfurl within them, even in the depths of their trials? As dawn broke upon the horizon, casting its first tender light across the hills of Jerusalem, the atmosphere seemed to shift. Every blade of grass shimmered with the dew of new beginnings, yet the shadows of the night clung closely to the hearts of the disciples. It was a day of reckoning, one that would inevitably shape the very foundation of their faith. In the aftermath of betrayal and despair, the disciples found themselves gathered once more, still reeling from the wounds of their choices, each grappling with the stark reality that Jesus had been taken from them. They roamed the narrow paths like ghosts haunted by whispers of hope, questioning the path that lay ahead. How could the man who had brought them joy now be shrouded in solitude and sorrow? Peter, still wrestling with the weight of his denial, stood at the edge of the Mount of Olives, watching the sun rise. Its rays sharpened with resolve, igniting within him a flicker of courage. What have we become? Can we still claim to follow him? He warned us, and yet we failed to stand firm, he murmured to himself, despair thick on his tongue. But in the midst of his turmoil, something within him began to awaken, a resolution born not only from guilt but a burgeoning desire for redemption. Meanwhile, John, filled with grief yet revived by a spark of understanding, sat huddled on a stone, his thoughts heavy with longing. We cannot forget who he was, he whispered to the stillness surrounding him. His love ushered us into a purpose greater than ourselves. Perhaps his suffering was not the end, but a beginning, a revelation we have yet to fathom. As the sun's warmth enveloped him, he began to sense a powerful undercurrent of truth hidden beneath the rubble of their shattered hopes. As the light of dawn intensified, illuminating the shadows of the prior night, the other disciples began to gather near. The air, once thick with despair, carried now a faint whisper of expectation. Each one arrived with their own burdens, yet there was a collective spark igniting in their hearts, a spark of faith rekindled by the understanding that even in darkest trials, love and purpose could triumph. We must not cower in fear, Peter finally spoke, turning to face his companions. This may be our greatest test, not of loyalty, but of love. If there is a light to be reclaimed, it is ours to carry forward. His voice gained strength, instilling in them a sense of possibility. We are not defined by our failures, but by our capacity to rise, to revisit our vows, and to bear witness to the truth. With that, the energy shifted among them, each looking to one another, finding courage in shared dread. Matthew stood, breathing deeply, as he allowed the warmth of dawn to wash over him. We must remember his teachings. In love, there is always hope. We cannot let our fears strain the bonds we forged with him and with each other. As the morning progressed, they felt an undeniable call to unite, to reach inward and reconsider the core of what they had experienced together. The promise of resurrection held within it the notion of rebirth, not only for the world but for their own souls. Each heart began to resonate with a clarity that transcended the Pinan invitation to embrace the transformation that was unfolding. Then they heard a distant voice echoing through the streets, a voice that would carry the truth not just to them, but to a world stumbling in darkness. It was Mary Magdalene, rushing toward them with breathless urgency. "He is risen!" she exclaimed, joy etched upon her face, illuminating the depths of despair that had begun to cloud their spirits. "He has fulfilled what was promised. The tomb is empty." The disciples looked at each other in disbelief, their hearts pulsating with the anticipation of new life. How could it be? Had the events of the previous night merely been the overture to a gloriously unimaginable conclusion? In that moment, the essence of their faith began to shift, a mighty revelation was birthed not from clarity alone, but from the embrace of doubt that had mingled with their love. In unison, they raced toward the tomb, hope gripping their hearts with every step taken. The shadows that had loomed over them were beginning to dissolve as the light became ever more radiant. Each disciple ran not merely to witness a miracle, but to reclaim the very essence of conviction that Jesus had instilled within them, a conviction to love fiercely, to forgive endlessly, and to bear witness to a truth that transcended their temporary fears. As they approached the empty tomb, their breaths halted, caught between disbelief and expectation. The stone had been rolled away, and inside lay only the linens that had wrapped the body of their Master, a powerful testament to the promise that transcended even death itself. In this divine moment, the culmination of their journey unveiled a truth that would echo through the ages. Through darkness and despair born of betrayal, dawn would always rise, leading to resurrection. Through him, they were renewed, transformed from shaken disciples into bold apostles. They understood that the trials they faced were not without purpose. Each act of betrayal, every moment of doubt, held the potential for awakening a deeper sense of love. With newfound resolve, they embraced the possibility of becoming bearers of light, propelled by the very essence of love they had witnessed through Jesus' life. As the sun broke through the final veils of night, lighting up the treetops and the paths leading away from the tomb, each disciple felt a powerful shift in their souls. The world around them was not merely a shadow of what had been, but a canvas alive with possibility, a space where love could conquer all uncertainties. They turned towards each other, joy and awe sparking brightly in their eyes, knowing they would carry forth this revelation into a world in desperate need of hope. And as they stepped into this new reality, their hearts echoed the question of their journey: would they hold firm to the love that had inspired them? It dawned on them with profound clarity that the very essence of faith hinged upon the uncertainty they had faced together. In that powerful revelation lay the essence of their transformation. Love is greater than betrayal, faith is most radiant when forged through trials, and even amid deep darkness, resurrection awaits those who seek the light. In this moment, they understood, the secrets buried beneath shadows could yield divine truth, and through their journey would echo the message that reflected upon generations to come, an unwavering assurance that love would always prevail, inviting all to step into the dawn.